"Take your filthy hands out of my car, you smelly." The scream of businessman Marcus Thompson echoed for the crowded parking lot of the most luxurious shopping mall in the city, making dozens of people stop to watch the show. His words cut the air like razors, directed to the 12-year-old Filipino boy who had politely approached to offer his services. The boy had noticed the BMW rear tire completely withered over an hour ago, observing discreetly as he shined shoes at the entrance of the parking lot. I knew that problem would only get worse, but I also knew that men like Marcus Thompson rarely heard advice from children they considered invisible. Kai Santos retreated a step, his small hands still holding a clean cloth and a bottle of water. The shock of public humiliation burned his cheeks, but his dark eyes kept a strange serenity, as if they kept secrets that no one could imagine there. There was something in that look that disagreed with his fragile appearance. "Please, sir, I just wanted to help you change your flat tire," Kai murmured with loaded accent, pointing to the rear wheel of the black BMW that was clearly in trouble. "I do it very fast. I just need a piece of bread for my sister." Marcus snorted with anger, setting his Tonner 3000 suit while watching the crowd grow around. As a CEO of Thompson Industries, one of the largest builders on the West Coast, could not allow his image to be stained by a dirty kid asking alms in public. "Your company had been featured at Forbes just the previous week. Listen here, you unfortunate." Marcus spit, pushing Kai tightly. "People like you should be working on the plantations where they came from, not infesting our cities. Add from here before I call security and make you deported." The boy stumbled but did not fall. At 12, Kai had already faced much worse storms than the arrogance of a rich man. Grated on the streets after immigrating with her 8-year-old sick sister, she had learned that true strength does not come from the screams but from the calculated silence. His mother had died in the first year in the United States, leaving them completely alone. "Okay, sir," said Kai softly, keeping his makeshift instruments in a torn bag. "But your tire will spoil your car if you keep driving that way. The side screw is loose and will pierce the internal tire." Marcus laughed with disdain, completely ignoring the precise technical warning. "As if a stink like you knew something about German cars." He climbed the BMW and accelerated abruptly, the wheels making noise against the asphalt. The crowd dispersed, some shaking her head in disapproval, others discreetly filming with her cell phones. Kai remained standing, watching the car move away from the main avenue. His small hands trembled slightly, but not of fear or sadness. It was something different, a contained energy that was beginning to throb its veins like a motor about to be connected. He had memorized the plate, BMW 72X4. An elderly woman with gray hair approached and put $5 in her hand. "Don't care about this horrible man, dear. Buy something nutritious to eat. You look very thin." "Thank you, lady," Kai whispered, but her eyes remained fixed in the direction that BMW had taken. Deep down his mind, gears began to rotate, calculating possibilities that this arrogant entrepreneur could never predict. He pulled an old cell phone from his pocket and discreetly photographed the direction Marcus had followed. 3 days later, Marcus would receive a call that would change his life forever. A call that would start with the words, "Mr. Thompson, his car was seized by the IRS for tax evasion. We have evidence that you used the company to launder money through fictitious contracts." As he walked through the empty streets toward the small apartment where he lived with his sister Maya, Kai murmured words in Tagalog that his mother used to say, "Ang tunay in lakas ay hindi nakikita, nagunit nararamdaman." True strength is not seen, but felt. He touched the small pendant he carried around his neck, a faded photo of his parents. What this prejudiced man did not know was that he had just publicly humiliated Elena Santos's son, one of the most respected federal revenue auditors, who had immigrated to the United States carrying much more than just hopes and dreams. He carried knowledge, contacts, and a network of information that transcended borders. Maya was waiting at the window when Kai came home. "How was it today, Kuya?" he asked in Tagalog, using the affectionate term for older brother. His medications for asthma cost $80 a week, and Kai did any honest job to get the money. "Different, Maya. Very different," Kai replied, hugging her sister. "I think our life will change soon." If this story of prejudice and turnaround touched your heart, be sure to subscribe to the channel to find out how a simple moment of humiliation would become the catalyst of justice that would prove that underestimating someone by appearance can be the greatest mistake of a person's life. The video of Kai's humiliation spread through social networks as fire in dry forest. In less than 24 hours, tens of thousands of times had been shared with titles such as "Racist Entrepreneur Humiliates Philippine Child" and "CEO of Thompson Industries Shows True Face." Comments shared opinions violently, but one thing was certain. Marcus Thompson had become the face of business prejudice in America. Marcus woke up the next morning with his bombarded call phone, Her press officer, Patricia, was in full panic. "Mr. Thompson, we need an immediate response. The company's shares have fallen 12% at the market opening and 3 important customers have canceled contracts. The press is at the door of their home." "What shit is this, Patricia?" Marcus shouted from his penthouse, watching the TV vans parked on the street through the armored window. "Because of a smelly kid? These people have nothing to do anymore?" Across the city, Kai discreetly watched the news on a cell phone borrowed in the public library. Maya was by her side, inhaling slowly to control her breathing. "Kuya, everyone is talking about you," she whispered in Tagalog. "Mom would be proud." "Not yet, Maya," Kai replied with impressive maturity for her 12 years. "This is just the beginning. Remember the stories that Mom told about how the powerful fall? It's not angry, it's with patience." Marcus, trying to control the damage, decided to double the bet. He called a makeshift press conference at Thompson Industries headquarters, a 40-story mirror building in the financial center. Wearing his best suit and with all the arrogance that money could buy, faced the cameras with disdain. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, setting the Italian tie, "I am a victim of virtual lynching orchestrated by people who want to destroy successful American entrepreneurs. That boy was disturbing customers in my place of work. Anyone decent would have done the same thing." The journalist's questions were like knives. "Mr. Thompson, do you consider pushing a 12-year-old? Why did you mention deportation? Does the company have policies against discrimination?" Marcus lost his composure. "Listen well. I built a $500 million empire with my own sweat. I will not apologize for defending my standards against invaders who do not respect private property. If it bothers someone, the problem is not mine." The cameras captured each word, every expression of contempt. The video of the press conference became even more viral than the original, with Marcus being portrayed as the perfect stereotype of the entrepreneur without empathy. Memes began to circulate. Hashtags like Tom Thompson racist and Justice Parakai dominated the networks. While Marcus sank more in his own arrogance, Kai made a decision that few would expect from a child of his age. That afternoon he walked to the most modest law firm he managed to find, carrying a folder of wrinkled papers and an unshakable determination. "Dr. Rodriguez," he told Mexican immigrant lawyer who answered cases for Bono, "I need help processing someone. I have no money, but I have something better." Kai put documents on the table that made Marcus pale if he saw them. Copies of tax statements, illegal works photographs, bribes, and a detailed list of labor violations at Thompson Industries. "How did you get it, son?" asked Dr. Rodriguez, flipping through the papers with wide eyes. "My mother taught me that information is power, doctor, and before she died, she left me more than memories." Kai played the pendant again around his neck. "She left me contacts." What Marcus didn't imagine was that Elena Santos had not died of natural causes as she was in the death certificate. She had been murdered for investigating corruption involving U.S. companies that illegally exploited Philippines, and before he died, he had gone to his 10-year-old not only knowledge but an entire network of informants and compromising documents about corrupt entrepreneurs. For 3 years, Kai had patiently collected information about men like Marcus Thompson, not for revenge but for justice. Her mother had died trying to protect exploited immigrants, and he would continue her work in a way she could never imagine. Dr. Rodriguez smiled. She first in weeks. "Kai, I think your mother created not only a survivor but a justice warrior. Let's show this arrogant businessman that there are consequences for those who step in the weaker." That night, while Marcus slept in her Egyptian silk bed, completely oblivious to the approaching storm, Kai remained awake by studying every detail of the documents her mother had died to get. He didn't know yet that in 48 hours Marcus Thompson's golden life would begin to crumble in a way that even his darkest nightmares could not predict. Maya whispered in the dark, "Kuya, are you sure that?" "Mom always said, Maya, the best revenge is not to destroy the enemy. It is to use his own arrogance as a weapon." Kai smiled for the first time since humiliation. "And men like Marcus Thompson always destroy themselves. They just need a small push in the right direction." What would happen when the documents arrived in the right hands would prove that underestimating an orphaned child was the biggest mistake Marcus Thompson made in his 45 years of life. Thompson Industries was free-falling. In just 1 week after Marcus's disastrous press conference, the shares plummeted 35%, 3 millionaire contracts were canceled, and the company faced an investigation for discriminatory practices. But Marcus, blinded by arrogance, blamed his own conduct. "These damn social networking activists are destroying honest entrepreneurs," screaming Marcus during an emergency meeting with his lawyers. "I want to sue this Philippian boy for defamation. I want to destroy his life as he destroyed mine." Patricia tried to intervene. "Mr. Thompson, our public opinion poll shows that 89% of people consider their actions unacceptable. Perhaps it is better to make an apology public and Apologies? Apologies for a street kid? Marcus punched the mahogany table. I built this empire with my own hands. I will not humiliate myself to satisfy a virtual mob. Meanwhile, across town, Dr. Rodriguez worked feverishly on his small office. The documents Kai had brought were a legal mine, detailed registrations of tax evasion, proof of slave labor in works of Thompson Industries, bribes to municipal inspectors, and evidence of money laundering through ghost companies. How did your mother get all this? Asked Dr. Rodriguez, flipping through suspicious bank transaction pages. Kai smiled sadly. Mom worked for the Federal Revenue of the Philippines, doctor. When he came here, he brought contacts in the Philippine community that works in American companies. Many are explored, work without document, in terrible conditions. She documented everything, waiting for the right time to act. And why did she die, Kai? The 12-year-old boy took a deep breath. Because some entrepreneurs found that she was investigating. The death certificate says pneumonia, but Mom was healthy. She told me that if something happened to her, I should use this information to protect our people. Dr. Rodriguez felt a shiver through his spine. That child carried the weight of a mission that many adults would not have the courage to assume. Kai, do you understand that this is extremely dangerous? If these accusations are true, they are true, doctor. And Marcus Thompson is not the only one. Mom left me information about 12 entrepreneurs who explore immigrants. He was just the first to prove publicly as a monster. Kai's strategy was surgical. First, he and Dr. Rodriguez sent anonymous copies of the documents to the IRS, FBI, Immigration Department, and 3 different investigative journalists. Second, they created a civil proceedings for racial discrimination and physical aggression. Third, and more devastating, they sent everything to the major customers and investors at Thompson Industries. Marcus had no idea of the approaching storm. In fact, his paranoia was focused on the wrong place. He had hired a private investigator to find dirt about Kai, completely oblivious to the fact that the real dirt was being discovered about himself. Find out all about this kid, Marcus ordered the investigator. Family, criminal history, anything we can use to destroy his credibility. I pay what is needed. The investigator, a former corrupt police officer named Rick Vaughn, accepted the work without hesitation. He specializes in making evidence and destroying innocent people. But this time I had chosen the wrong target. Kai had foreseen this possibility. 3 days before Marcus hired him, the boy had already secretly recorded a conversation with Vaughn, pretending to be a teenager looking for drugs. Vaughn had proudly confessed to blackmail schemes, evidence manufactured, and bribes to witnesses, all recorded in high definition. Maya watched her older brother work with a mixture of admiration and concern. Kuya, you're not sleeping for 3 days. Are you sure this is safe? Mom always said that justice does not come to those who wait, Maya. Come to those who seek her with intelligence. Kai showed his sister a detailed map on the wall of his room, connecting companies, people, and crimes with colorful wires. Marcus Thompson thinks he is fighting an orphan child. He doesn't know he's fighting 3 years of investigation, irrefutable evidence, and the network of contacts that Mom has built before he died. Dr. Rodriguez had become more than a lawyer. It was the mentor Kai needed. Son, your mother would be incredibly proud. But promise me one thing. When all this is over, you will still be a child. Don't let this mission steal your childhood completely. My childhood is over when Mom died, doctor. But if that works, Maya and thousands of other immigrant children will have the childhood they deserve. The following Thursday, the first bomb exploded. The IRS officially announced that it would open an investigation into Thompson Industries for tax evasion and money laundering. On Friday, the FBI confirmed investigation for trafficking in people and slave labor. On Saturday, the city's main newspaper published a cover story entitled, "The Rotten Empire, as a Millionaire CEO Built Fortune Exploring Immigrants." Marcus received the news as he had breakfast on his penthouse. The newspaper fell from his trembling hands as he read the precise details of crimes he was sure no one would find out. Specific transactions, exact dates, witness names, photographs of documents that should be locked in their private safe. How did they get that? He whispered to himself, his face pale with each paragraph. Its arrogance began to become panicked. What Marcus didn't know was that Kai was just beginning. The 12-year-old Filipino boy had spent 3 years studying not only the financial weaknesses of corrupt entrepreneurs, but also his psychological weaknesses. And men like Marcus Thompson had a fatal weakness. They could never stop digging their own hole when they felt threatened. Marcus woke up on Monday with his life crumbling at scary speed. His phone had played uninterruptedly since 5 in the morning. Customer connections canceling contracts, investors withdrawing funds, and journalists demanding statements on accusations of tax evasion and slave labor. "Mr. Thompson," Patricia said in a trembling voice through the phone, "we need to talk personally." Urgently. The situation is much worse than we imagined. Marcus arrived at the office and found Patricia surrounded by piles of documents, his face pale and red eyes of those who did not sleep. They have everything, Marcus. Bank transactions, photographs of workers in subhuman conditions, recordings of conversations they're authorizing bribes. How did they get that? This is impossible, Marcus shouted, his control finally shattering. These documents were in my private vault. No one had access. That's when Patricia showed what she definitely broke her. Marcus, there is a detail you need to know. Remember that researcher you hired to destroy the life of the Filipino boy? Rick Vaughn was arrested yesterday. He was being investigated for months for blackmail and evidence manufacturing. Marcus felt the floor disappear under his feet. What does this have to do with me? Everything. Vaughn recorded his conversation, Marcus. He recorded you asking him to make evidence against a 12-year-old. The FBI has the full recording where you authorize any method necessary to destroy that Filipino kid. The silence in the office was broken by the sound of Marcus's cell phone. It was an unknown number. He answered with trembling hands. Mr. Thompson? The voice was calm, polite, with an almost imperceptible Philippine accent. Here's Kai Santos. I think we need to talk. Marcus was cold. How did you get my private number? The same way I got all your other secrets, Lord. My mother taught me that information is power, and you just found out how much power an orphaned child can have when underestimated. Your mother is dead, kid. Stop inventing stories. Yes, my mother is dead, Mr. Thompson, murdered by entrepreneurs like you who explored Philippine workers. But before she died, she documented everything, every crime, every bribe, every violation of human rights, and taught me how to use this information intelligently. Marcus began to sweat cold. What do you want? Justice, Mr. Thompson. The same one that the Lord denied the 47 Philippine workers who died in his works for lack of equation safety clearances. The same one that denied the 200 families who were dumped to build their illegal enterprises. You can't prove any of this. Kai laughed softly. I've proven, sir. Turn on the television on Channel 7. Now. Marcus ran to the TV and called. The special news showed aerial images of their clandestine works, interviews with families of dead workers, and, more devastating, their own recordings authorizing buildings without environmental license in protected areas. For 3 years, Mr. Thompson, I filmed his works. I document his meetings. I recorded his conversations. Each Philippine worker exploited I met gave me a piece of the puzzle. The Lord did not humiliate only an orphaned child in that parking lot. Humiliated the son of Elena Santos, the woman who dedicated her life to protect our people from the exploitation of men like the Lord. The story on TV now showed Thompson Industries' internal documents, confidential emails between Marcus and corrupt politicians, proof of illegal payments, all with date, time, and authenticated digital signature. Marcus fell into the chair, watching his empire to dispose of on television. You're just a child. How did you get it all? For the Lord has made the same mistake that all the powerful make, Mr. Thompson. He confused poverty with ignorance. He confused youth with disability. And especially he believed that people like us have no connections, have no resources, have no intelligence. Patricia whispered, horrified. Marcus, the stock market suspended the company's actions. Banks are freezing our accounts. The FBI is confiscating our computers. Kai continued on the phone, his voice keeping the same scary calm. Mr. Thompson, you have a choice. You can face the legal consequences of your crimes, or you can do something you have never done in life, to apologize to public and use your remaining fortune to compensate for the families you have hurt. What if I don't do that? So you will know the rest of the documents I haven't released yet, because what you have seen so far is just the beginning. I have evidence about 11 other businessmen like the Lord, and they are all watching their fall now, wondering when they will be their turn. Marcus realized that he had been completely defeated by a 12-year-old child. His arrogance, prejudice, and cruelty had turned against him in a way he could never imagine. Why are you doing this? He whispered, defeated. Because my mother taught me that when someone has the power to make a difference and does not do, he becomes an accomplice of evil. The Lord chose to be accomplice, Mr. Thompson. I chose to be the difference. The call was closed. Marcus stayed there, surrounded by wreckage of his empire, realizing that he had underestimated not only a child, but an entire community he thought could explore impunity. Across town, Kai hung up the public phone and walked home, where Maya waited for him with a proud smile. Mom would be proud, Kuya. Now she can rest in peace, Maya. Justice finally arrived. What Marcus Thompson would discover in the next few hours is that true revenge comes from anger, but from patience, intelligence, and ability to transform injustice into justice through the power of truth. 2 years after the collapse of Thompson Industries, Kai Santos, now 14, walked through the halls of the prestigious Stanford University as the youngest student of international law ever accepted at the institution. His full scholarship had been sponsored by a foundation specifically created for young immigrants who showed academic excellence and commitment to social justice. Maya, now 10 years old and her asthma completely controlled thanks to the first-line health insurance that Kai had won, ran to hug her brother when he arrived home in the 3-bedroom apartment, now called home. Kuya, left on TV again. They said, "You're the boy who changed labor laws to immigrants." Dr. Rodriguez, who had become a father figure for the brothers, smiled proudly from the kitchen table where he prepared documents for the 10th process that moved against exploiting entrepreneurs. "Kai, the Human Rights Commission wants you to talk to the National Conference on Child Labor next month. You are officially the younger voice of the movement." Kai smiled, but his eyes still carried the premature maturity of those who faced adult storms. "I'll accept, doctor. But first I want to show you something." He turned on the television on the local news. The article showed Marcus Thompson being escorted out of a federal court. At 47, his billionaire empire had turned into unpiguous debt. Thompson Industries had completely bankrupt. Their personal goods were confiscated, paying compensation to families of exploited workers, and he faced a 15-year sentence in prison for trafficking in persons, tax evasion, and criminal organization formation. Former Deputy Marcus Thompson was convicted today by federal judge James Morrison, said the journalist. The evidence presented by the young activist Kai Santos and the Bono law enforcement network led by Dr. Miguel Rodriguez resulted in the greatest investigation into the exploitation of immigrants in the history of the West Coast. Thompson lost not only his fortune but also his wife, who asked for public divorce, and his 2 adult children, who changed surnames for shame. Maya whispered, "He looks very different from that arrogant man from the parking lot." Kai nodded thoughtful. "Arrogance has a price, Maya, and Marcus paid with everything he valued most: money, power, and respect for his own family." The phone rang. It was Patricia Williams, former Marcus advisor, who had become one of the leading witnesses of the accusation after discovering the extent of the former boss's crimes. "Kai, I just learned that Marcus tried to commit suicide in prison yesterday. He is hospitalized but out of danger." Kai was silent for a moment. Dr. Rodriguez watched him, knowing that this moment would test the character of the young man. "Thanks for warning me, Patricia. I'll send flowers to the hospital with a ticket." "What will you write?" asked Maya curiously. "That there is still time for him to redeem himself by helping other exploitation victims. Justice is not about destruction, it is about correction." Dr. Rodriguez smiled proudly. Elena Santos had created not only a survivor, but a true warrior of justice with heart. 3 days later, Kai received a handwritten letter from the prison. Marcus had agreed to collaborate in full with investigations into the other 11 entrepreneurs that Kai had documented. Its cooperation would result in a penalty reduction, but more importantly, would help dismantle an entire exploration network that operated for decades. Kai, wrote Marcus with trembling lyrics, "You taught me that true strength does not come from money or power, but from the ability to transform pain into justice. Your forgiveness is worth more than every empire I lost. I hope that one day you can honor your mother's memory helping to protect people like you." At the International Human Rights Foundation ceremony, Kai took the stage to receive the Young Activist of the Year prize in front of an audience of 500 people, including politicians, entrepreneurs, and journalists from all over the country. 2 years ago, Kai began in the microphone, his firm voice echoing through the auditorium, "A man humiliated me in public because he judged my value by the color of my skin and the place where I was born. He thought he was destroying a helpless child. In fact, he was awakening a movement." The audience applauded, standing as Kai continued. "My mother taught me that revenge is not to make others suffer as we suffer. True revenge is building a world where no one else needs to suffer what we suffer." Maya watched from the front row alongside Dr. Rodriguez, both with tears of pride in the eyes. Elena Santos would be radiant seeing her son transform trauma into triumph, humiliation into heroism. Today, the Santos-Rodriguez law, created from the evidence that Kai compiled for 3 years, protects more than 2 million immigrant workers in the United States. Marcus Thompson fulfills his sentence helping in the investigation of explorer entrepreneurs, finding in redemption what he never found in money: inner peace. And Kai Santos? At 14, he already speaks 4 languages, studies international law in Stanford, and leads a foundation that has still identified and sued 47 entrepreneurs for labor exploitation. His next goal is to become the youngest federal prosecutor in American history. The best revenge is not to destroy those who harmed you. It is to build something bigger than they could ever imagine. Marcus tried to humiliate a child and eventually raised the lawyer who would change the country's laws. Kai learned that true strength does not come from anger, but from the ability to transform injustice into justice through intelligence, patience, and especially compassion. If this story of overcoming injustice has touched your heart, subscribe to the channel to discover more stories that prove that prejudice always loses when facing the determination of those who refuse to accept injustice as destination.